my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we are back for another episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta. And this is season 17, episode 18, and this is the reunion part 1. And let me tell you, this was so good to me. It was so good, so good, so good. But what I'm probably going to do, I'm going to do this slightly differently because they kind of went all over the place and it was just entertaining to watch. I might actually go back and watch it again over the weekend with my friends when they get in town because I was enjoying it. But I think I'm going to go person to person, like through the couch, as in like what impact did they really do for this reunion? Because like I will say something, some of the people on this show are still not really bringing anything come the reunion, and maybe we'll see more in part 2 or part 3. But I will say one thing: K. Michelle has clocked all the way in. We're not getting Kimberly, we're getting K. Michelle, and I'm just kind of like, yes, about time, and we got some clarity on a lot of things. And I don't look at her. I look at her slightly differently past this part 1 because she definitely did correct herself a lot. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first, let's get into how everyone entered. So, we did get a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff. We saw Portia and Andy do that nice little cute little song, talk about if they're ready for the reunion. And Portia and Andy both pretty much agree that everyone else minus Shamia, she will probably, they can probably patch things up. And really the only person she really had an issue with that wasn't really an issue was K. Michelle. So, and then Kelly possibly, but other than that, she really didn't have any issue with anyone else on the show this season, other than, clearly the obvious Shamia. And so that's kind of what we get from that. Portia's loved by Andy. Portia, Andy really likes him some Portia. And if I was Shamia, I would look at that and be like, is it really worth me still being on the show knowing that the person who I have the biggest issues with, my boss loves her? You know what I mean? And also, too, she has other people on her side. And even the viewers have her back. But I don't know. I guess it just really depends, and we'll see what happens here. But yeah, that's kind of what happened here. And then also, before everyone got on stage, we actually saw Jarvis. Not blurred out, Jarvis. And do we believe that this is Jarvis? I ain't gonna hold you, and maybe I'm just being conspiracy theorist or whatever. I just don't. Part of me doesn't believe the Jarvis thing's real. I'll be honest with you. Partially because maybe just we saw him briefly. The way he was looking in a Halloween costume, he looked much taller than he did here. So I don't know, but maybe I just have some questions. I have questions. I'm not so sure about it, but he's there. And why all of a sudden now he's on camera? I have a lot of questions, but maybe we'll get clarity on part 2 and part 3. But then, first Pinky arrives first on stage, and then, of course, Andy's already there, and then K. Michelle, and then Kelly, and then Angela. Phaedra and Shamia kind of showed up at the same time. Portia and Drew was last on the stage, but no one was left waiting, and then right away we get into it. Andy does the pleasantries. He's like happy pride to Portia, and Portia does a light passive aggressive shade towards Shamia about it. She's like, yeah, thank you for saying that. It came across authentic from you, not shady like someone else, basically alluding to when Shamia did the same thing. And then from there, Andy goes to Phaedra. And honestly, I just want to get Phaedra out of the way because Phaedra really did not bring anything for this reunion. The only thing we talked about with Phaedra is that this little brief incident where we find out, which wasn't filmed, it was filmed but it was cut, that she actually ended up meeting with, oh my gosh, the politician, Jasmine Crockett. She ends up meeting with her on the show, And apparently now Phaedra wants to be a politician. And so that's her next step of what she wants to do when it comes to that. And then the other thing that Phaedra really brought with this part one of the reunion was one of the initial questions that was a Drew question was asking about the black situation. We'll get into the black situation when we talk to Drew, but basically Phaedra opened the gates on that, because also the thing that we found out this reunion is that all the women were basically asked to submit a question for another lady on the show, just being extra messy. And so that was kind of the first way we got, that's the first way of how we got that about. And then the other thing that kind of got brought up during this part one of the reunion, by the way, Phaedra still ain't sharing her life with nobody, number one. That's one thing we made very clear. She's been going on double dates with Portia and Sway, but we don't know who the other person is on the date with Phaedra, and we're never going to know that because she basically made it clear she wasn't going to say anything. And then we find out the tea that her and Mike also dated. So the person that Phaedra and Portia share that as an ex is Mike, the actor that a lot of us don't believe was real. Yeah. Anyway. And also too, we kind of got into Phaedra being basically saying her preference, being kind of a little bit of a confessional gangsta, particularly when it came to Portia and her preference in dating people that are not broke. And of course Phaedra cleaned it up because it wasn't meant to, I knew it wasn't really meant to be shady, but it was funny when she said it. I mean, it's a great quotable, you know, you got the for the money. Like, it's a good quotable. It is. But besides that, yeah, Phaedra is just kind of there for part one. So that's kind of what we had here. So that's kind of why I was just like, let's just get Phaedra out the way. She really didn't, that was really all she kind of brought with this first part. But then from there, we're back to the pleasantries. So I told you I'm going to skip around a little bit. Drew basically mentioned she got a little bit of a knit tuck, basically a little bit of a BBL situation. And then she's like, mine isn't leaking. It's like, Drew, you knew what you were doing. Definitely a shot towards K. Michelle, but trying to make it seem like there wasn't a shot towards K. Michelle. It's like, Drew. But Drew does that. At least she's somewhat owning it, like trying to. Well, yes and no. But this is not our first rodeo with Drew. We see you. And then Shamia, her greetings with Andy was like, should we mime our greetings? And Andy's like, I don't know how we will mime that. And so that was kind of really all she kind of brought. Honestly, Shamia was just kind of there with this first part. She was barely in this reunion. Yeah. Shamia, she just is not interesting. And I think, and unless you're doing, everyone's doing what they're doing right now, they're making her more interesting than she is, but she's kind of not really interesting. I'll just be honest when it comes to the Shamia situation. But I've been said that. But then also to Kelly, is asked what she's wearing. And, Andy referenced a Tom Ford t-shirt. And then that's kind of what happens there. And then K. Michelle was next to get greeted, and she's like, yeah, I'm here. And if that wasn't foreshadowing, K. Michelle did a lot this first part of the reunion, and I was not mad at it. But K. Michelle and Portia did a lot of the heavy lifting of this first part of the reunion, and I was entertained. I'll be honest, I was pretty entertained by it. And then Pinky's last to be introduced, and she's like, I want to hear the B word one more time, unless we're talking about baby. And then that's where she makes the announcement that she's pregnant. So that's when we find out that she's pregnant. Everyone's congratulating her. And, I think Andy asked, like, how'd your mom feel about that? She's like, oh, she was mad as hell about it because, yeah, I think, is it child number 6? They have a lot of kids. And considering the finance situation that she has going on, which I am looking forward to hearing about for part 2 or part 3. How, Sway? How? No pun intended. But anyway, let's get into the Drew. This really wasn't the Drew segment, but we talked a lot about Drew a little bit here, so let's get into that real quick. So we talk about the pelvic floor, and we talk about a lot about black. And then this is when Phaedra's question came about that mention where basically Phaedra's asking like, hey, are you two together yet, or what's going on with y'all? And then from there it kind of segues, and Drew's giving us a Drew answer, which is really talking around it and not really giving us an answer. She's like, he's my real friend, he's really good and all that. And then as the whole entire time while Drew is talking about this gentleman, K. Michelle is just saying all these things in the background about him being a scammer and everything. And for those who are not aware, which it was brought up in the reunion, he has a lot of scamming like allegations against him. And there's quite a few women, and it's all women that are suing him. So K. Michelle, when she was going back and forth, because this, of course, led to a back and forth between her and Drew, because Drew is still defending this man. And it's like, girl, with love, Drew, your picker sucks because you picked a Ralph, and now this guy's your friend. I'm just saying, your picker is not great. And then you also may or may not have allegedly messed around with Ty Young. So, like, your picker is not the best. K. Michelle's isn't either, but I mean, at least K. Michelle will admit that wasn't always great. So, yeah. But K. Michelle was right when she was going back and forth with her about the black situation. But Drew kind of got her back a little bit about starting, basically making an issue between them two. And K. Michelle alluded to, you were doing this stuff, but you were doing a lot of off-camera stuff. And I'll be honest, do I believe Drew maybe have done some off-camera stuff? Yes, because it's been said that she does that every season. But I think at this point with the back and forth, because it's so funny now watching K. Michelle back and forth with Drew, because it's not that serious. I feel like at the beginning when K. Michelle was doing these back and forths in the season with the people, she was very emotional. And now is very just shady back and forth, and then they kind of laugh it off and stuff. So it's nothing where there's nothing that serious where they can't come back from. So that's kind of they're going back and forth so much, at least at this point. Drew wasted no time and had her a damn prop and was like, cut, like had the actual, I forgot what you call that thing, but the scene thing. And so and all the women was like, not Drew again with the plot. I mean, not with the plot. Sorry, not Drew again with the prop. Cause Drew, one thing about Drew, at least once a season, we're going to see Drew with a prop if we see nothing else. A stunt of some sort. But it actually worked. It was actually funny. Everyone kind of got a good kiki out of it. And then from there, it went from Drew to Kelly, because Drew was just like talking about body positivity, how we shouldn't shame each other's bodies. Even though Drew kind of did shade K. Michelle's body indirectly, being passive-aggressive at the beginning when she had the intro and shaming people's businesses and stuff like that, when yet and then that's when Kelly chimed in. She's like, you know how you basically did that to me? Like, you say to be positive and all this stuff, but yet you made it a point to do that to me. And Drew was like, I am retaliating. Like, which she was. She was. Drew, I will give her that. Most times, at least from what we see on camera, she is retaliating and getting her lick back. And so Kelly and Drew start going back and forth. And then as Kelly and Drew goes back and forth, the way Angela got up in there right away, because I think it was either that time or Angela chimed in a lot of times where she wasn't really being talked to. Like, she was just like in there between, and it would happen every time between when it was Portia and Kelly, and also whenever it was Drew and Kelly. Because we saw at the season finale, Kelly and Angela kind of got into it at the end, so clearly they got some unresolved things again too, and so they're kind of going back and forth here. And so then from there, we kind of switch focuses and we get into Angela and Pinky and their read off. And both of them, I love how both of them are just like on the other side of it and they just enjoy the read off. Like they were just like, no, it was a good session. We did what we did. And a lot of the women, most of the women are agreeing that Angela won. And what got Angela to win was the fact that Pinky sat back down. And, you know, and Angela's like, no, she had heart. She had heart. She was a child. She was going like, and even Angela, I feel like said like, yeah, when you sat back down, that's when I won. Like, if she wouldn't have done that, if she would have just did the walk away, it would have been a draw. I feel like, to me, that's kind of what I got from it. But yeah, it was just like, I love how they would do these back and forths and they would get back to just like smiling and just having a good time. So that's, I think, the other reason why this reunion was very enjoyable to watch. So then next, we actually go into the Portia segment. Okay, so then with Portia, we talk about, you know, her dating life and what's going on with all that. And then, you know, she basically tells us that she's in love with Sway. And I still am standing by my theory that I had that her and Sway were probably exclusive longer than what we knew. But Portia decided to share it when she was ready to share that. Well, they decided to share when they were both ready to share that. Because I feel like I said, I feel like the Mike situation was just a distraction. Just, you know, to take us off the scent of where she really, how she really feels. And I will also say what was really enjoyable about talking about this was that Portia opens up about how she hasn't really ever really officially came out, but like, you know, her mom's happy for her. You know, if she decides she wants to get married, her mom's okay with that. And also too, Andy asked Shamia, how does she feel about it? And Shamia, I don't know if maybe she just doesn't know how to fix her face, and that's part of the problem with Shamia. And I get that. I'm the same way. I don't know how to be fake. Like, my face tells everything. But she's saying she's happy for Portia, this, that, and this, and that. But because she just has that discontentment on her face, it comes across really, really fake. And I don't think Shamia is intentionally trying to be fake. Let's just be clear. I think she's just very unaware. I will just say that. I think that's part of her issue. She's very unaware. And so Portia took it as a dig, because then we got into the whole Happy Pride thing. And Shamia and her kind of went briefly back and forth about things. And Portia just let it go, because Shamia is still standing 10 toes down that she didn't mean to be shady when she said it. Because then she said it again during the reunion, and it came across the same way, where it's like, girl, you don't mean it. Like, stop doing that. Like, I think, like I said, and we've said it so many times throughout both seasons that, you know, she's been full-time, Shamia needs to stand on it. If she feels a certain way, she needs to stand in it. And she doesn't know how to do that. And it's just kind of annoying. Anyway, so then from there, we briefly talked about Drew and her music. Because we get back to Drew a little bit here. And, you know, Drew, you know, basically states that her first album did really well. And so now she has a single out right now. And it's a different single than the song that she currently has out. Because now she has like a happy birthday song that's out. And I will say this, Drew's doing a good job. And then K. Michelle gives her 10s and says, you know, I really do appreciate Drew doing really, really well when it comes to her music and stuff like that. And Drew's like, but yet you still come for me. And so they kind of go back and forth just a little bit, but K. Michelle kind of straightened her out really quickly. Because, again, this wasn't Kimberly. This was K. Michelle. K. Michelle was like, look, I really don't have a true problem with you. I don't. And as a woman in the music industry, I know how difficult it is. So for the fact that you're even trying and doing what you're doing, I commend you for that. But, you know, when you are saying hurtful things, I'm going to say it back. But honestly, I don't really have a real issue with you. That's pretty much what she said without saying it. And so Drew kind of left it alone for the most part. And then from there we get into the Ralph of it all. And, you know, Drew's officially divorced. Also, too, she don't want that man, that black guy. And I love how throughout this whole entire time during the reunion, we're alluding to Drew, you know, swim down the lady pond. Also, did anyone catch when they, Andy asked who all swam in the lady pond before? And I mean, I really wish Drew would just be truthful about it. Because, I mean, she is being truthful about it as she has. But, like, I think she really wants to be more like Portia. And not like as it being like her mini-me. I think she really wants to be more free like Portia. But because, you know, her background, she's not going to be able to do that. You know, I think that's what we're getting with her. So, anyway. But we find out that the divorce is finalized and the custody situation. And then Ralph says something slick about and tagged Dennis in the post. And Portia's like, yeah, that was trash of him. F Ralph, basically. And it's just funny to me how last season her and Shamia were plotting with Ralph to get Drew back, and now it turns around and Ralph pretty much, you know, throws a dig towards your own situation with you and Dennis. It's interesting how the tables turn super quickly with that, but Ralph is a jerk. So I mean, I'm glad since the divorce is final, we won't see that man again, hopefully, on this show. So that's great. By the way, the Portia segment, I forgot to mention it. It was funny to me because they went through her whole entire dating history throughout her time on this show. And they just kept seeing Miss Diane saying, he wasn't it. He wasn't it. I was like, that was an entertainment segment. I ain't gonna hold you. And then from there, we talk about the Simon's house thing and Kelly trying to act like she's not jealous of Portia, but is giving you're jealous of Portia. And so they kind of go back and forth. And the way Kelly's reads now, going against Portia, aged like sour milk, because we now know that is her house. Like, for real. She was awarded that house, and we just found that out. And the funny thing is, Portia, I think, had a temporary victory before with the reunion. She was like, you know, she's like, I was rewarded. I know you don't know what that means, but I was like, Portia was quick with it. And, you know, when Portia and K. Michelle, I'm going to get to that real quick, briefly. When they were going back and forth, man, they were getting each other good. I was like, oh. And Portia historically has never been known to be like a reader. But the way they were pop, it was good. I was enjoying the back and forth. I ain't gonna hold you. But anyway, back to the Portia and Kelly situation. Portia just packed her up because, like, when you're living in someone else's house, you can't say nothing about, you know, the way she's trying to say that Portia lives in that man's house, but you live in Shamia's house. It's like, girl, you live in Shamia's house. And she was like, I lived in Shamia's house for 2 weeks. It's like, no one is believing that. No one's believing that. And then somehow Angela got in there. She's like, buy a house. Like, because Angela was saying that. And, no. And then, like, Kelly was like, sell a house. And then Kelly got her facts all wrong, trying to say that Angela had foreclosure on her primary home. She was like, no, that was the investment home. And I just let it go. Like, that wasn't even the same thing. So yeah, Kelly didn't stand a chance, but I love the feistiness of her, that it was 2 against 1. And she was trying to handle it. She really was. I know if it was Shamia, she would have folded. I'm just saying. Anyway, so then I think Andy, because he basically stopped it because they were going back and forth too much, to the point where he grabbed the cut thing from Drew and was like, cut, and I'm like, yes, a prop that actually works so people can shut up. Drew did a good job with this prop. This is probably like one of her better props that she has out. And so then to end this segment, or try to end this segment, she does ask Portia. Andy asked Portia, like, so are you banned from Nigeria? And Kelly still just yap, just yapping on the side. Like, yes she is. And Portia's like, no, I'm not. Like, girl, relax, girl, bye. And then that's when we get a little bit into the Phaedra and Portia of it all. And then from there, then that segues into Portia and K. Michelle. So we find out, I already knew about this, but I don't think the viewers, because a lot of K. Michelle antics were off the show and not on the show. So I think it confused a lot of people who don't follow stuff off the show. But K. Michelle stated, I love how you and Phaedra talked about how you dated the same person and you just already had it out there. I wish you would have given me that same liberty, because I'm trying to get to know you. I'm trying to get introduced to this friend group. Come to find out, I find out from a guy that you are talking about me because, like, you're dating him. But to find out, it turns out he's just being messy. And K. Michelle and Portia was like, I don't really know you. I was trying to really get to know you. Like, it's not that serious. And notice all the time whenever Portia's being talked to, it's like whenever Portia, Angela, or Drew's being talked to, Shamia just always has a stank look on her face. And I think that's the other thing that we can't stand. It's like, I know you don't get along with some of these women, but if you're not being talked to and it's not about you, why are you just holding so much behind it? I don't know. That's neither here nor there. So they start going back and forth, and they get into a major read down. And Portia and that K. Michelle Memphis accent that she threw out of nowhere, I was not expecting. I was cackling. I was like, girl, what? To the point where Drew was cackling. Even K. Michelle started laughing. And then she started correcting Portia. She's like, iterate. Like, them two, their back and forth was cracking me up. And then out of nowhere, Portia, I guess, was like, yeah, you had a lot of bodies on you. It was like, oh, okay, we're getting into that. You know how K. Michelle is. She don't like when people talk about other people's hot pockets, right? And she's like, well, you need to shut your glory hole. You've had a lot in that hole, that glory hole of yours. I was like, oh. But then they just kind of brushed it off. It kind of ended there. It was nothing serious. And so then from there we get into the K. Michelle segment. And the K. Michelle segment was a cute segment. We see her for the most part. We don't see all her reads and stuff and all the way she feels about the group like that in her segment. We basically see her with the country music, her about her body, her botched body, and then also her wrapping the season finale up, basically saying how much she actually appreciates getting to know all these women, good and bad. And I will say this, K. Michelle, this reunion really, she had, dare I say, she had a Portia reunion. You remember how Portia, I forgot what season 5, how she almost didn't make it after season 5, and that reunion saved her? I feel like K. Michelle did a very similar thing, where she brought it. She definitely brought it. We talk about the music, and she was like, yeah, I'm working on the cover art. We know this reunion was filmed way back and not really on schedule. Like, and I hate that they filmed it so far in advance because a lot has happened since then. But yeah, so we find out she is still trying to present her. We find out more of why K. Michelle was the way she was on the show, pretty much with this segment. She basically said it without saying it. She's like, I need to be careful of how I act because this is still a new audience for me. And also, too, they're paying attention. So I feel like that's why, in a lot of ways, she didn't bring the conflict in person. She did it either via Twitter or confessionals. Mainly Twitter. Confessionals, it happened a little bit later on, but it really was more or less Twitter. And then Andy makes fun of her for bringing up the scrub situation with her husband and him basically freeballing. So now we all know that. I don't think we all wanted to know that, but we do now. And she basically says, he's never going anywhere. He's always going to be in the picture. He's always been in the picture. And we know that. Those who actually follow K. Michelle outside the show, he's been in the picture on and off for decades. So we kind of knew, it's not a surprise to me that he's in the picture. And she's like, cheating, a little stroke ain't going to stop me from, stop us from being together. And Andy was like, wait, are you a gay man? And everyone was like, wait a minute, is that how you roll, Andy? I love how Portia right away flipped it and started trying to make an interview about Andy. Andy's like, I'm not on the couch. But he was like, but I will say this, in the gay culture, we're a lot more relaxed when it comes to sex. And that is one thing I do love about, the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm in the community too, but I feel like I present more for the most part straight, even though I'm really not. So because I still have a lot of those things, when it comes to relationships, I'm pretty traditional for the most part. But there are aspects of me, I'm not going to get into it because none of y'all business when it comes to all that, where I admire how liberating, that culture is, the gay culture, because I'm not gay, because I'm a woman, so I can't really be gay, right? And gay and lesbian culture are not the same, so that's the other thing. And also because I'm kind of, pan, I don't feel like I'm all the way in when it comes to being a lesbian, because I'm really not. So, but yeah, I do love that. And, yeah, it was just a good key for this moment. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting off of me. And then Shamia and Drew kind of start going back and forth again. I forgot what was the reason. I don't remember why Drew and Shamia went back and forth. Shamia, like I said, she was barely really around when it came to this reunion. Drew was heavy in this reunion, part one. Portia, K. Michelle, and Kelly. And Angela just was kind of... I didn't really like how Angela was showing up first part of the reunion. I'm not going to hold you. It's just girl, relax. But neither here nor there. Yeah, I forgot why Shamia and Drew went back and forth. But they were going back and forth about something. I just totally forgot. Shamia interjected in the situation, and then after she interjected, Drew and her started going back and forth, and Angela interjected on that too. And it's and then Shamia's like, see, it's the double standards, and it's you did it first, and that's the problem that Shamia doesn't seem to understand. She always does this type of thing first, but she doesn't acknowledge that she did it first. But anyway, I think that's all I wanted to say there, because it really wasn't much to do about nothing. But then Phaedra did chime in again one more time, and she was like, yeah, I think K. Michelle, when it comes to this show, had PTSD from her old friend group. And Honestly, that makes sense to me. And even K. Michelle agrees that was kind of really what was going on. Like, K. Michelle was, reacting late because she was just kind of she was kind of just, out of her element, completely out of her element. You could tell she was. And she would try to get ahead of things where she just needed to wait for things to play out. And which honestly, I will say this as someone who used to watch Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, that is how you used to have to operate in Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. You had to get ahead of things. You wouldn't wait till things play out. And so it's a completely different type of reality show. And so it's just an adjustment. And you could tell, you saw towards the end of the season, K. Michelle made the adjustment and learned to play the game. And so then Portia and K. Michelle kind of went back and forth again a little bit. Not a serious back and forth. But then Portia finally figures out, along with the rest of us, because I didn't know that's what was going on either. Apparently, what K. Michelle was doing, she was tweeting like she was basically confessional tweeting. So instead of saying what she would have said in confessional, she was doing it on Twitter. And Portia was like, oh, that's why that didn't make sense. Because her doing it that way was reigniting issues because, the show was filmed way back and all of a sudden now you're bringing this up again. And it conflates things and made things worse than it needed to be. And I think that was like K. Michelle's way of trying to promote the show, but it just did not do her any favors because everyone was lost when they were seeing her with all these different tweets because no one knew what she was doing. And it also made it seem like that K. Michelle was crashing out when really she wasn't. Because now we knew what she was doing. And Andy was like, word of advice, don't do that. And the way K. Michelle was like, okay. And then the last question that we had for this reunion was Drew asking Shamia, why would you tell K. Michelle that the friends in the group do not like you, but I like you? Why would you do that? That's, will bring some thoughts in someone's head who already is feeling a way about, learning and trying to be part of a friend group, especially a women's friend group that K. Michelle has never really been a part of. And by the way, K. Michelle, I forgot to mention, she was thankful and grateful of this opportunity for that because she was finally able to do that. And she keeps saying, and the other thing she said, she was like, I keep saying I'm healed. But what I've been doing, I've been avoiding being in situations that would cause me to, basically react versus actually trying to get in those situations again and react differently. And I was like, wow, okay, K. Michelle, you growing up. I like it. So, but yeah, Shamia clarified, she was like, my comment was not about this friend group. And then she mentions Candy. It's like, God damn. It's crazy that Candy's getting brought up and she hasn't been on this show for like 2 seasons now. But the way she gets brought up as if she's still on the show is wild. And I'm sure Candy's going to say something about her speak on it. But she's like, yeah, I'm friends with Candy. And we have mutual friends that K. Michelle does not like. And then that's what K. Michelle like, yeah, those are the mean girls of Atlanta that I was talking about. And, Shamia was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that, but that's what I was talking about. And then Andy asked, well, wasn't there like some off-camera stuff that happened that, between you and K. Michelle? And K. Michelle's like, yeah, there wasn't there? I mean, Shamia's like, yeah, there was. K. Michelle, you're all talking about it. Why don't you speak on it? And then, which I'm just like, girl, why are you trying to sound like Candy? But neither here nor there. And basically, K. Michelle was like, no, you're the one who's like talking to everyone that will hear you and telling people these things. And yeah. And so, but we leave it there and we find out, so we put a pin in it, and that's the end of the reunion part 1. And we find out that Cynthia will be joining us immediately come part 2, the reunion. And that was it. That was the show. What y'all think? I enjoyed it. I actually did really enjoy this reunion. And I'm looking forward to part 2 and 3. Now, I will say this. For those who watch some of my other content, I don't know yet if I'm going to do the Ultimate Girls Trip or not yet. I think I will. We'll see. I'm going to watch it tonight, and I probably will sleep on it to see if I'm going to review it or not. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not looking forward to it. There's other shows that I'm looking forward to more. Salt Lake City's going to be coming back up soon. I was actually underwhelmed by the trailer, but Salt Lake City always brings it, so I'm sure we'll have some shockers that we didn't see in the trailer that will be good. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and I will see you next time. By the way, who you saw earlier was Whisper. Bye!